The ultra rares up against the live rares. The stage is set. It's showtime. Simple and black and crack. They played it smart, but they'll need to stay sharp to... Take it! seats. The live wires surged ahead in this team deathmatch. Truly a personal.
Hey there. Wanted to put out a video covering a couple of different topics, the main of which is going to be gyro to joystick camera. I wanted to prove that it's a very viable way of controlling gyro in a lot of games. That's going to be utilized via Steam Input. Another topic I wanted to talk about is utilizing your controller as an all-in-one input device for your PC. So you should be able to turn on your PC and use your controller to control your Discord apps, your music apps, your web browser, as well as Steam Input and your game. Just not having to swap back and forth between the mouse and keyboard and the controller. It makes it a lot more easy, seamless really. And the third of which is going to be utilizing DSX with the DualSense DLC. It costs $15, but you're going to be able to get your adaptive trigger function back, as well as your haptic feedback function back with the Steam Input. By default, Steam Input is going to disable those functions. For $15, you can get it back. I know it's a pain in the butt, but it's a really nice way to be able to use your adaptive triggers. So we're in DSX now. You can see there's a lot of different settings for how you want your adaptive triggers to feel. You've got continuous resistance, gradual resistance, vibration, which is really cool. I've set mine up to where I get no resistance through half of the trigger pull, get a strong amount of resistance for a nice click, and at the end, no resistance again. One of the really cool settings you could do is vibration. So you can set up a vibration frequency. Let's say you've put a turbo on a semi-automatic weapon. You could set up a frequency to vibrate on every single shot that comes out of the weapon. It's really cool. A lot of different settings you could do here. You can control your haptics. I don't currently use haptics because I find that they affect gyro control in a negative way, but audio to haptics is really cool, joystick to haptics, a lot of different options here. For $15, you get a lot of customization. So we'll hop in game real quick. I do want to show off. I'm going to hop into Steam to get into the game because I'm on big picture mode. We're going to go down to settings here. I'm going to go down to controller, and down at the very bottom we've got desktop layout. Desktop layout is a means, anytime Steam is open on your PC, of using your controller as an all-in-one input device for your PC. So what I have done is set up Steam as a startup app on my PC through Windows. So every time I turn on the PC, Steam's gonna turn on, and then I have full control of my desktop. I can use my browser, I can control Discord, my music app, get into Steam, play games. I don't have to pull out a mouse and keyboard. It makes it really intuitive. I have downloaded a community layout and done some modifications myself, but you can see this person spent 30 different iterations and output all of them, and they really fine-tuned it. You can do everything. You can Alt-Tab, you can F11, you can Escape key, you can copy and paste. You can do so much. You've got full browser function, page up, page down. So many different things you can do with this. You know, buttons to show the keyboard, the virtual keyboard real fast. It's really, really helpful. And you got gyro as mouse here. From here, let's go ahead and step into my in-game controls. We're going to take a look at gyro to joystick camera beta. So I don't prefer to have a ratchet button myself. I like to use the right thumbstick as a camera thumbstick and have it on suppression to the gyro. So anytime I'm using the right thumbstick to control my camera movement, my gyro is going to be turned off. I find that it allows me to make a lot of the more jarring movements with the thumbstick, and then make the more fine movements with the gyro. One of the main settings you're going to want to change is going to be minimum joystick output. By default, you can see it's set at 25%. That is far too much output. It makes the the gyro motions feel just way too powerful, very jarring movements. I think anywhere between 15% and below is going to be viable. I like 12.5% for the finals, but in some games, I've gone as far as 0.1%. So there's a lot of different settings you can choose. I would suggest playing around with it. My sweet spot's probably between 7.5% and 12.5%. One thing I'm going to cover a little bit in the settings is going to be look ramp. So in a lot of games, when you maximum deflect your joystick, it's going to massively increase the sensitivity so that you can make very quick turns. That tends to mess with gyro a little bit. So what you can do is take your maximum output, put it down to 95%. So your gyro is never going to be activating that maximum look boost output. I currently don't use it because my sensitivity settings are actually quite high, so I can keep it at 100%. Joystick power curve. This is one setting I don't really suggest messing around with. It can make the kind of a similar situation with the minimum joystick output. It could just make it feel a little bit too jarring or very sluggish. You know, these higher numbers, these feel very sluggish. It feels very bouncy. So I find the default one to be very consistent. In-game max turn rate and in-game minimum turn rate are two settings that you're definitely going to want to play with. By default, I don't really like the settings at 180 degrees and 0.5 degrees. I've done anything from 600 degrees on the max turn rate and 45 degrees on the minimum turn rate, enabling angle catch-up so that I get a nice smooth turn all the way down to these settings for very fine movements. There's a lot of different things that you can do with this. On the fine movements, you're probably going to want to turn off angle catch-up because you don't need it. And on these settings, you can see that I've got a really low gyro sensitivity. If I added that 645 degrees, you might see 5 times sensitivity here. But these are the main settings. These core 4, right? You want to change this. You're going to want to play around with these. You're going to want to play around with this. We'll go all the way down. These two settings, to each their own on these settings. I find that the gyro speed dead zone kind of allows for a little bit less jitteriness, especially when I'm pulling the trigger. And on these finer tuned settings here, I'll put that up to 1 degree. Sometimes I put it here. I do think it's pretty solid here. Precision speed, I like to keep that completely turned off. It can make your gyro feel really sluggish when you're trying to make very small movements. Acceleration's turned off. Momentum's turned off. Not really necessary, these two settings. I find if you've got this all fine-tuned, you don't really need these two. Definitely don't need momentum. Acceleration, you can play around with the low acceleration, but it doesn't provide a whole lot of consistency with your gyro movement. The last setting that you're definitely going to want to look at is 3DOF. I know a lot of people like player space. Player space is great. Some people like world space. I personally prefer local space. Provides the yaw and roll movements, very stable, but you can set your controller orientation, your permanent controller orientation. I like to point my controller almost completely straight up towards the ceiling, so negative 92 degrees is right where I'm at. It's very consistent. We'll hop in a game here. So you can see, this is local space. That's me turning the controller left to right. Right? And then this is me turning the controller over itself as if it were a steering wheel. That's not bad, right? Let's go take a look at settings here. So what you'll see is the Finals does have an in-game gyro, but you'll notice that it's turned off. I don't have it active because I already have an instance of gyro active through Steam, so can't touch it. But you'll see my controller settings here. I like to have pretty high sensitivity when I'm using gyro. This sensitivity scale goes up to 750, so it's at 75%. I like to do that across the board for every game I play. Put it at 75% of the sensitivity scale, and then change the sensitivity scale for gyro right here. That's how we change the sensitivity for gyro. So this allows across all your games to have a pretty linear sensitivity on your joystick, and then you can fine-tune the gyro sensitivity inside Steam Input. We'll see a lot of basic settings here. Focal length sensitivity scaling is turned off. I do have look boost turned off, but we can use look boost if you turn the maximum joystick output to about 95%. Minimum dead zones. Here's a very important setting. Look response curve. You do not want to be using sinusoidal or exponential. They don't work very well with gyro. Linear is the way to go. It feels very responsive and snappy. Same with look acceleration. Got to have that turned completely off. It'll make it feel very sluggish. And that's it. Pretty simple settings. So we'll take a look here. I'm using a semi-auto pistol. I like to put a turbo on it. So I'm doing a lot of the jarring movements with the thumbstick here. Right? Yeah, it's pretty decent sensitivity. But the fine-tune movements, yeah, with the gyro. And you can see this is pretty responsive, right? I'm flicking the gyro here. Feels pretty good. When people say that the gyro joystick camera isn't really viable, this is responsive. It's consistent, it's responsive, feels just as good as gyro to mouse to me. And I don't have to have multi-inputs, you know, the game recognizes a controller, it works very well. My adaptive triggers working well. See if you can hear this click here. So I'm soft pressing, that's my ADS, and that's the click. Very responsive.
The Steamrollers versus the Overdogs. Watch closely, folks. They're ready. speed, showing they have no plans to slow down.
The Steam.
I'm going for that zip line. Looking for movement. Walking away as champions in the upcoming final round. Here's the zip line. Instincts, the Overdogs secured the win. No one could outbark their strategy. All right. Versus Shells. All eyes on the arena. It's go time.
Let's dive in, people. There is just one rule out there.
finish. A disciplined, well-executed performance. Shells stand ready for the final show. Reflected their solid approach, driving them to capture a hard-fought win in the arena.